Good morning, everybody. We'll be starting in another 5-10 minutes.
Ansalish, can you see? Yes. So it takes 20 seconds of lag. It takes 25 seconds of lag. So, okay, there is a lag when you see it on the right screen. That's what. Okay, there is a 20 seconds lag, so I think you will see this. I'll also show you the person who made it first. Oh, it is looking more than that. But there is a huh? Now you can see. So this very tall guy in front.
No, no, it is still not.
This very tall guy. Yeah. So he's the person. His name is Rishikesh. And next to me is Neha. She's a big boss. Yeah. This is
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the 6th National Conference on Social Entrepreneurship, Rethinking Development, Strengthening the Grassroots. I'm sure that everyone had a beautiful and enriching day yesterday, and I'm sure that some of the heartwarming stories and inspirational initiatives have made us rethink what change means to each one of us. Today, we start the second day with the theme, Leveraging Indigenous Resources. Protection, regeneration, and control over local resources is a prerequisite in self-reliance and any ground-up development process. A bottom-up model of development requires participative local institutions which can take decisions and utilization and maximization of local indigenous resources, natural, material, and human. This session brings some such impactful examples of community taking change of and leveraging on local resources. I would like to call upon the dais Anshu Gupta, founder director of Goonj, who is going to be a moderator and speaker today. Kalyan Akkipedi, founder of Proto Village. Akkipedi, sorry. I'm so sorry. Dr. Marcella D'Souza, executive director, Watershed Organization Trust. And Dr. Zakir Hussain, Program Manager, Center for Sustainable Agriculture. Call on Sneha to present the bouquet. Anshu Gupta, founder of Goonj in 1998, an organization which recycles anything that is discarded as an urban waste into a resource for others in the rural and calamity-hit areas. Anshu Gupta has created a mass movement for recycling and reusing tons of waste materialized by channelizing it from cities to villages as a resource for rural development. Anshu Gupta is an alumnus of Indian Institute of Mass Communication and Master in Economics. Anshu Gupta is an Ashoka Fellow and an Ashoka Global Ambassador. For his work, he has been the recipient of Changemaker Innovation Award 2004 and 2006, World Bank's Development Marketplace Award 2007, NGO of the Year Award 2007, and Schwab Social Entrepreneur of the Year 2012. I'd like to call upon Mr. Anshu Gupta to please take forward this program.
Morning, everybody. I think we will stick to 1.5 hours. 1.5 hours starts now, and everyone will get about 15-20 minutes to speak. we will have a Q&A on the normal format. Interesting topic in the morning itself. Rather, the title is much more interesting because when we talk about rethinking development, that is what we have been trying to say again and again. That the way we are thinking, the way we think it is development, we need to actually challenge every single part of it. Because in all my sessions, this is what I always say, and especially in a gathering like this, where we, the so-called intellectuals, the practitioners, the degree holders, are sitting here, working with a lot of human or financial or different kind of capital with the best possible resources, and for decades. But if we put a hand on our heart and ask honestly, what kind of changes do we see in a country like India? The honest answer somewhere will come, and which is not a very good answer, which is not a very good picture. Because a million might be a very big figure in any other country. Million is just a population of a few colonies in this particular country, because this country is a country of volume, where you have problems or issues in volume, you need solutions in volume, and you also need people who work on those in volume. Somewhere something is absolutely and fundamentally wrong. I mean, it is so easy to say that we have adopted a village. In a country where you take 2 years to adopt a kid, by putting 2 headphones, we claim we have adopted a village. It is so easy to say 100,000 lives changed in our own beautiful brochures. In the same country, I can't change my neighborhood, I can't even change myself in my lifetime. But it's so easy to claim on the so-called poor, financially poor people and say 100,000 lives changed. It's not about vocabulary. It's about the thought process, the way we think about it. I mean, when I see this strengthening the grassroots, I'm still wondering that are we the right people to strengthen the grassroots? Are we not going in the same direction where we are going to decide how it will happen? Because the fact remains that there is hardly any participatory approach. There are very, very few initiatives which ultimately listens to the rural communities or the slum communities and sit with them and talk about the problem and do not come with their own solutions. Otherwise, the fact remains that in this country, there is no lack of resources. The kind of resources we have. I mean, I will talk about my work later, rather at the end. But I'll just give you one example. We have this initiative called Cloth for Work, where people work in the villages and then in return they receive cloth, utensil, footwear, whatever. People often question, because people say that, this is not a participatory approach because people are not paying you. But can you imagine that if a person pays 50 rupees, you say it's a participatory approach because the person has paid 50 rupees. A person pays 300 rupees worth of labor, we do not value that. Although that person has paid 6 times more, I'll prove that in my session, in my talking, in certain slides. I think the time has come when we start talking about non-issues. The time has come when we start talking about the parallel currencies which used to be the strength of this country. Money cannot be the only currency. There are Professor was telling me, which I don't know, that there are almost 3,500 parallel currencies identified in this world, especially in this country. And we still think that for development the resource is money. In most of the cases, that's how the funding agencies operate, that's how the entire CSR, which is sitting on such huge money and which is a guilt money ultimately, many of them need to do something because of their guilt, because what they are doing otherwise in the society. They need to pay. They don't do any service. It's very simple. CSR is a different kind of fund. CSR, I personally feel a part of it is a guilt fund. So today, I think there of us are not pursuing in the same direction. So someone has taken a master degree in something else and doing something else. I will also not read the profile of everybody, rather I will only tell you the page number so that you can refer to the book which Professor Shukla and his team has really put in a lot of efforts to make it. So we will take almost 15 to 20 minutes each of us maximum so that we have enough time for Q&A and reflections now. Let me call upon Dr. D'Souza first. And a big profile is there on page number 33. But one thing which is very interesting is that she is a physician with focus on community health. And now the work which she is doing is also a people-centric approach. That's the community which is there. I will also not talk about anybody's work and profile right now. Just understand this and see that how these local resources are coming up and how many initiatives are really making good use of it.
So good morning, friends, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share the experiences we have and on how do we leverage the local resources. And I'm focusing my topic on the semi-arids in this country. Because India is a vast country and we cannot generalize anything here. The problems we face in the semi-arids, women particularly having to work very hard and for hours in the summer for water, to fetch water just for drinking, to walk kilometers also to fetch fuel wood, the fights over water, and then distress migration. This is a photograph we have taken once in one of our project areas before we began. What do you think is the situation and the opportunities that the youth, like you all, what are the opportunities they have to make a difference and to have the type of life we have? And what would happen in a year of drought? Some say we need to teach them skills so they can provide services in urban areas. And others, and in a time of drought, what we have are ecologic refugees. That's what happened last year in Maharashtra, in a major part of Maharashtra. We had households just moving on to cities because they had no water. I just want to introduce you to a little film. It's a 2.5-minute clip.
मध्ये पाणी होतं, आज पाणी नाही. 72 मध्ये समजा अन्न धान्य नव्हतं, त्या टायमाला पाणी भक्कम होतं. आमच्यापेक्षा जनावरांचे नाही आले. आता आमची 300 जनावर गेले छावणीला. आता कासारवाडी म्हणून गाव आहे तर कोणी तिथं पाणलोट क्षेत्र घेतलं, त्या गावाला टँकर नाही, टँकर मुक्त गाव. इथं 2 किलोमीटर होते कासारवाडी. आजच्या घडीला त्याला पाणी फक्त नाही. अक्षर पाणी, हिरेला पाणी, डोंगर भागाला हे डोंगर भागाला पूर्ण कट्टे झालेले, त्याच्यामुळं पाणी जिरलेलं आहे तिथं. आज त्या लोकांची परिस्थिती अशी की त्याला ऍक्च्युअली नुसतं असं हायवेला तरी आणा बरोबर इथं 2 किलोमीटर आणि आम्हाला तर पाणीच नाही की आम्हाला पांढर क्षेत्रामध्ये घ्या आमचं गाव आणि निदान आमचं निदान पुढच्या पिढीचं तरी कल्याण होईल.
गावात कशी परेशानी काढायची अजून आमच्या गावात नाही तर सध्यापासूनच आम्हाला टेन्शन होतं. आता काम सुरू झाल्यापासून आम्हाला आता याच्यापासून आम्हाला लय पाणी आमच्या गावात होतं. म्हणजे आता सगळीकडेच नाही ना पण आमच्या गावात सध्या तुम्हाला आता लोकांना लय पाणी पण आम्हाला इथं काम नाही.
बांधवडीच्या कामामध्ये शेतीमध्ये बांधबंदी केली, जमीन बांधणारी गाय भरणारी केली, माती नाली घातली, सिमेंट भरणारी केली आणि सीसीटीव्ही लागले तयार काढले आणि बांधण्यात आमच्या त्यावर्षी फक्त एक पाऊस झाला आम्हाला तेवढं एका पावसात ते 15-20 दिवस त्या काट्यात पाणी थांबलं जमिनीत पाण्याचं पर्क्युलेशन झालं हे झालं त्याच्यामुळे आता पाणी आहे.
पाण्यामुळे इतकी जवळ झाली आम्हाला आमच्या एवढं पाणी आलं म्हणून आम्हाला कुंटल जवळ झाली 1600 म्हणला. आता आमच्या गावात समजा असते दोघा तिघाची धूळ गेला नाही तर बाकी कोणाची धूळ सुद्धा नाही.
त्या तुम्ही गावावर आले ना गावाच्या शिवार त्याची शेती यांच्याकडे 7 एकर जेवण 7 एकर जेवण त्याला खडकाचं काम पडलं 2-2 जेवण वाढते 2-2, 3-3 आमचे जेवण 7-7 फूट वाढले त्याला पीक आलं त्यांचं जेवण 20-25 जेवण
पाणी क्षेत्राचं काम झाल्यापासून परत आला आमच्या वेळेला मित्र वेळ पाणी नव्हतं त्यावेळेस पोषणासून पाणी राहिलेले पाणी घेतलं पेटलाईन केली आणि पेटलाईन करून त्याला टेबल जोडलं टेबलला पाणी म्हणून झाड आलं नंतर असं मोठं पाणी द्यायचं म्हणलं तर नंतर पूर्ण नसतं ते ठिबकचं पाणी थोडं लागतं आणि पाणी थोडं लागेल सगळी झाडं चांगली असते.
So following situations, as you have seen, here are some snapshots. The first one is a satellite image you can see in 96 and the other one is in 93. The red is actually the false color composite, it shows greenery, despite having a low rainfall. The lower 3 pictures are of one watershed and you have the tree near the temple which is actually the marker and you can watch the difference between 96 and 2004. And this is a picture from another village from the data collected in the wells. And despite a low rainfall, the water in the wells have increased. And this is the amount of water that can be harvested with good structures done. The impact on agriculture. This is over from between 96 and 2009. The return on investments. This is a consolidation of 5 villages, the impacts that are shown, the before and after. Opportunities for now 2 to 3 agriculture seasons within the village itself. A decrease in migration, distress migration. And when one looks at what makes this difference, if you look at our country, as I said earlier, that 30% of the country is semi-arid, 7 to 8% arid. What would the population in this large chunk of our country do when we are faced with drought? But with participatory watershed development, here you have seen the visibility of solutions. To make that happen, we need nature, people, and the institutional framework that makes it happen. It's the rejuvenated ecosystem, even in semi-arid areas, that actually provides for the cities in the semi-arid areas with its water source and with its food. We have many of our cities located in these areas that have their waters coming from watersheds that are well treated and protected, so that the urbanites get the water. If not, there will be chaos in the political sphere. This comes from a group of villagers and communities who are protecting it the other side. It is those people in the communities, their culture, the technology that is required. In this case, we cannot just go only to traditional technology, but merge modern technology and scientific technology with the eco-space, working it together with the community. It's the human and social capital that is very important, and it is the institutional framework. Hence, restoring ecosystems and enhancing the resource base. These are some of the types of structures that are done, and from this picture you will know it has to be done in a very systematic manner. It cannot be done haphazardly. And if you ask the people in the villages today, it is the women who will also say, only when we do a good work can we get the water in our fields, in our wells. They will tell you the story of how the rainwater gets trapped, even if it is a little. It is forced underground, and that's how the water systematically gets into the underground streams, and it is by percolation that it fills in the catchment areas. Now, if this land degradation and water scarcity are a common problem in a village, you've seen the pictures earlier, we in water believe that this common problem are opportunities where all can benefit. And capitalizing on this philosophy that we have, we put the community in the center to make the difference. How do we get an inclusive community? For one thing, it is the village who has to choose for it. There are certain non-negotiables. We need to follow the hydrological system. We cannot do work anywhere. That is where technology comes in. We need to get every community to participate, whether they are every group to participate, the women and the men, the high caste and the low caste, the tribal, even the landless poor. And they need to have a proportionate representation in their communities. It does not work if it is disproportionate. And then, of course, the Gram Sabhas, the PRIs have to be actively engaged. We fit in fully within the constitutional framework of the PRIs, also with the Forest Department guidelines and norms, the JFMs, because it needs to fit in within the system, or it will not be continued. And to make the difference, we realize there's something what Joe said yesterday. Poor people very often are considered to require poor solutions, and that's what he challenged. And that's what we also looked at, because we believe that we need state-of-the-art services and opportunities to provide it there where it is most needed. So what are these tools that we use? There are some tools, you know, there are some more that we are generating together with the people as we work at it together in their locale. We have the village visioning, so that people begin to come together, all the community, groups in the communities, come together to identify their problems and to put forth their vision. We call this process a village visioning process. Once they have decided they have come across their vision, we then map it according to what the land resources require. We do what is called a participatory net planning, very systematically done from the engineering perspective. We have a software that has been developed, and entering the data together with the rural youth who are engaged in the process. We have also provided that this data is translated from Marathi into English so that it facilitates the quickness that we today require. When working with the government, we know that we cannot afford to take many days to invest in the baseline data collection. So we have to put in a lot of software tools. And we do this such that our rural youth who are now trained with us can work on it. So it's a participatory net planning which is now adopted in many states and in many government programs and across in Nepal. And most recently we realized that when we have watershed development, we have a good work, we have good results, you've seen it. What happens when the drought is severe? What happens when there are long gaps in the rains? What happens when the rains are delayed? And we realize that the weather variation and climate change is beginning to have its impact. And that is where we have recently released our new tool, which is called the Community-Driven Vulnerability Evaluation. And the first one is the Program Designer, assessing who is vulnerable from what aspect, which groups in the community, and in what. I'll show that to you in the next slide. So these are tools we work together with the local communities, training a lot of them. Training them in the implementation process, having the local youth trained there, or local, and I would say youth, could also be people who are older, but who have a fresh mind and are prepared to learn something new, men and women. Training them to maintain the record and accounts, and to give the accounts to the community, and the participatory impact monitoring. And for this, in order to capitalize on the rural youth and the people in the communities, we have our, I would call it a virtual school for sustainable and living and livelihood. Virtual because we do not have a building, but all the work and training takes place in classroom, 1/3, and 2/3 out in the field. We train the local community organizers, a 2-year course, and I'm very happy to say many of them, most of them are now engaged with us in our own field work in different areas. So this is what we do with them. This is technology, the GPS done by the local community, local youth. This is the vulnerability assessment, giving you a color code, and it's a software that helps you attain it quickly. The automated weather stations managed in the village by the rural youth, data sent to us, going to IMD, who then gives us the locale-specific weather advisories, going to farmers in SMS, and then giving information back to villages. When we have data, we show them these charts. They learn and they know how to read it and understand what it is. Knowledge even to women. Growth monitoring is put on a chart so that women can understand where the village stands, the community can understand where it stands, and the problems. We face big problems because how we foster equity and equitable sharing of water, particularly in a mixed community. In tribal communities, it works very well with us. And the big challenge we have, the market pulls, the need for cash. And very often, the people in the villages tell us, how can you, why do we not have an opportunity for education? Okay. This is who we are, talking from experiences of over 7 lakhs hectares with us and with our partner NGOs. Okay. And this is how we believe we should be working, and this is how we work on the balancing of the 5 capitals and enabling conditions that allow people the framework to make it happen. But right in the center is an integration with body, mind, and spirit, because that's where we all meet. Thank you.
This is a bit unfair to use this bell, you know, because this bell is used to call everybody, and now I'm asking someone to leave. It's not done. Let me call upon Dr. Zakir Hussain to talk about this initiative and work. But find page number 38. By the time it sets up, you need to read it. Simple.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Zakir Hussain. I would like to share with you about the community control over natural resources and community management sustainable agriculture. So, we all know there is a lot of crisis in agriculture. One is economic crisis, ecological crisis, and socio-political crisis. In an economic crisis, increasing cost of cultivation, decreasing returns, decreasing public support, and increasing investment. In the ecological crisis, we all know modern farming is highly linear system, and whereas traditional agriculture is highly cyclical, and there is a lot of monoculture of crops and loss of biodiversity. And modern farming is based on capital depletion and massive addition of external inputs, and like energy, water, chemicals. Modern farming views the farm as a factory with inputs such as pesticides, fertilizers, blah blah, and using in different crops. Socio-political crisis, looking at the socio-political crisis, increasing tenancy, land ownership, and there are 2 lakh farmers, 2,70,000 farmers in 17 years committed suicides in India, and distress migration. And this is the vicious cycle of using pesticides in the field. So when you use one chemical once, it will develop resistance, the insects develop resistance, and then when the farmer uses another molecule of chemicals, then it also develops resistance, and ultimately it will lead to suicides. On the other hand, fertilizer use also is increasing, and subsidy is also increasing in India. Look at the picture where farmers are standing in queues to get the subsidy and fertilizer from the local dealers. And at the same time, high use of inputs leads to fertilizers leads to greenhouse gases emissions, and 1.2 kg of nitrogen emitted per 100 kg of nitrogen applied. If you apply 100 kg of nitrogen, there is an emission of 1.2 kg of nitrous oxide. And at the same time, there is upsurge of input costs in agriculture. Look at the prices of pesticides in 2007 to 2009, and at the same time, look at the prices of fertilizers. This is the data from the government. And at the same time, there are a lot of innovations happening around India, looking at sustainable agriculture models, which highly relies on using local resources and knowledge-centric approaches. So, involving the communities. So, our organization is mostly promoting a concept called non-pesticidal management, a system that maintains insect populations below those causing economic injury by having healthy crops and managing the population levels. At the same time, it is simply not the superimposition of 2 or more control techniques, but it is the integration of all suitable management techniques in a harmonious manner with nature. It is a paradigm shift in moving from input-centric model to knowledge-centric and skill-based model. It involves making best use of natural resources locally available and take best advantage of the natural processes. And in the process, we promoted all in pest management, disease management, and fertilizer management. We promoted all local resources involving the communities. So I will share some of the cases where how our journey started. Our journey started in the past with a village called Pulupula in Khammam district, where the whole village gave up using pesticides in cotton, and there is 35 lakh saving in the village if they stop using chemicals, and that village caught attention of media, national, international media also. And Minister for Agriculture Andhra Pradesh visited that village, and they announced to scale up such models in Andhra Pradesh. And another in the process is a complete organic village, where mostly the farmers use it to depend on external inputs first. And there was a problem of pests, huge outbreak of pests. They were unable to control the pests, and they tried various alternatives, and so they searched for alternatives, and they were unable to control. And then they adopted this sustainable agriculture model. Then now the whole village is completely organic. And I would like to share another interesting experience. A village called Ramachandrapuram, a tribal village where farmers grow cotton in 200 acres. They got in debt traps, and their land was mortgaged to the moneylenders. And they were suffering with huge debts. In the remaining lands, they adopted these practices, and then they got some income, and they repaid the debts, and they got back their lands. Another is seed is also a input that is mostly external nowadays. Now, what has happened due to modern agriculture, farmers stopped thinking about the local resource use or traditional knowledge. They forget the traditional knowledge. Everything became externally dependent. And with all these experiences, with the program has been scaled up with the to a larger scale, with partnering with government, and then with human groups. Then when there is a program award called Community Managed Sustainable Agriculture. The main objective is to sustain agriculture-based livelihoods with special focus on small and marginal farmers, to use technologies and practices that are a blend of modern science, indigenous knowledge, and traditional wisdom that are based on local natural resources, knowledge-centric rather than product-centric, involve community resource persons, to use the community for management by involving, for example, SLGs. So we build up a cadre of resource persons from the communities, and we train other people to facilitate these communities as well on these technologies. So this is the impact of community managed sustainable agriculture. The program started in 2004, which in a small scale, and it reached to 35 lakh farmers adopting these practices in Andhra Pradesh. It's a large scale scale-up program in India. I can say in India. And looking at the cost of savings in the cost of production, in different crops, you can say the average saving 55,000 in cotton, 30,000. So if you take that adopted acres, the total saving is this much. So lakhs and crores of rupees are saving at a farm. And say the same thing, the University of Agriculture, Hyderabad also they done a study, and they got some awareness on reports on awareness on organic farming, better market prices, capacity building, and emergence of different programs and policies. This is the savings I would like to share in 3 years. When program started in 2004, the saving was 3 lakhs, and the saving and cost of production was 2.7 lakh, and the budget spent was 3 lakhs. Similarly, when it reached to 2006 and 7, the saving at farmer level is 5,010 lakh. And the opportunities for agricultural workers also promoted in this program, like NPM service centers, where they agriculture workers, they prepare the concoctions and sell to the other farmers. And village enterprises also has been promoted. Agricultural labor, leasing the land and doing NPM practices was also a part of this program. An increase in labor mandates, village enterprise, seed production, neem procurement and selling, all these enterprises were focused towards using local resources. And ultimately, we attempted to address end-to-end solutions across the agri-value chain, in soil material management to bio-input enterprises, local resource use, basic pest management, up to the market. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sen. One of the things which we have been talking about is also that how do we measure the success or impact? And again, fundamentally, we have to relook into this, because if you see in today's world, the success is only and only measured in terms of numbers. Everywhere you need numbers to prove that there is an initiative which is successful. And I always wonder that how can you really measure the success of social initiatives or social changes, especially in numbers only? Why quantitative data has become so important and we ignore the qualitative data? I mean, what Dr. Hussain has just shown you is certainly a lot of quantitative data of the changes. But I personally feel that the bigger change which has come because of these kind of initiative, where you're using the local resources, you're reviving the cultural practices, or rather the traditional practices, where you're talking about basically valuing the wisdom of people instead of depending on outside world, where you're actually talking about changing the thought process itself in the agriculture and in the seed and in the fertilizers and so many other things, which maybe we will never be able to measure in terms of numbers. But personally, I feel, and maybe some of you will agree with that has much larger impact than the numbers which are there.
Qualitative data also, but
No, I 100% agree with that. But I am just arguing out here, not because of your model, but in the entire development sector, the way things have gone wrong, because we are talking about rethinking development. And the success has become so dependent on the numbers we provide, unfortunately, because we don't see beyond what is happening. I mean, our role is not just to bring every single child in the school. That in any case, government has been doing in some so-called manner. Our role is also to understand the quality of it. Let me call upon Kalyan. I know him as a corporate guy when we met each other, and then suddenly you, not suddenly actually, gradually rather, you see him trying to change a village, trying to create an absolutely model village with the local resources. And Kalyan's favorite statement last year is that, he is pretty against the bottom of pyramid theory, and we all are, many of us are, because his argument was that in any case, every pyramid has a bottom. So what is the great deal about it? So let me call Kalyan to talk about it. Profile page number 31.
It's a wonderful video that I would want you all to focus on. But before I do that, I just have a very strange request. When I just walked towards the mic, I didn't quite hear the claps that I heard earlier. So I'll give you 5 seconds. Can we redo the claps again? There's a reason why I asked you for this. The reason is that while the claps have become louder, the sound, it represents the way the modern society lives, incoherent and slightly out of rhythm. So can we try that again? Yes. So we got into rhythm in the last 2 or 3 seconds, right? Now I would like to take you to the video.
10 million starlings flock together to create the most astonishing aerial display in nature. These spectacular aerial displays are seen between October and February when birds pour into Rome from all over Northern Europe. To create such perfect symphony, it was once
So, what I want to really talk about today, in the context of proto-village and in general, rethinking development or whatever we call it, is the wisdom that we can derive from the swarms, the kinds of birds that we've just seen, the starlings. Now, the ability to self-organize and synchronize exists in our genes. It's inherent to every living being, and in fact, some scientists say even in the non-living things. They're right there from the pacemaker cells within our hearts, the sinoatrial nodes of our hearts, all the way to the farthest reaches of the cosmos. So every single particle, subatomic to the biggest, everything has this property inherent. So this is called the self-organizing behavior, and this is universal. There are three simple rules that every entity, which is part of that swarming behavior, follows. The first simple rule is that they all have a tendency to line up right next to each other. The second simple rule is that they're all attracted to each other, but they tend to keep a safe distance between themselves. And the third and final, and to me, most important rule that they follow is that I forgot the most important rule. So anyway, it is that every single member in the swarm, I'll just kind of rephrase that. Every single member in the swarm is aware only of its very immediate neighbors. So if I'm the member of the swarm, I'm only bothered or aware of the birds which are just around me. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 p.m. So these are the three simple rules that every member in the swarm involuntarily follows and causes these spectacular displays. Now, what is the moral of the story? Moral of the swarm thing? One thing is that when you're aware, when your entire swarm behavior is based on your awareness of your immediate neighbors, one moral of the story which obviously comes out is that you better have a very good neighbor. But more seriously and more important is this. Every individual member brings in a certain amount of diversity, but is willing to appreciate the mutuality, the interdependence. So they work together, and that creates, in return, the immunity and the independence as a collective, and that protects them from the predators on one hand, that also creates access to food easily. So it's a collective behavior. Now, we were like this maybe just around when we started, experiencing the legacy of life that was given to us from over about 3.5 billion years. And we were like this just about 200,000 years ago when we just came in onto the planet. And most of such behavior was still available to be seen in many of the villages in general, but tribal villages in particular. But then something happened. We did something that the birds just could not do, and that is, we went to school. And our school changed it all for us. It kind of tried to standardize us into things that taught uniformly, consistently, like everybody else around us. And that kind of turned off our ability to self-organize. And what it also did was, as a consequence, was that it taught us to break out of the swarms that we are part of. And we learned to compete to be on top of a funny pyramid. which looks something like this. I couldn't get a better picture, but it's sufficient for me to make my point. It's all growth driven. I mean, it's a mathematical or a logical impossibility to think that there can be infinite growth or limitless growth, which the current paradigms demand on a limited, finite planet with very, very finite resources. Now, this is driven completely by consumption, and our consumption at this moment is so huge, so vast, that within 8 months in a year, we consume all that the earth can regenerate or is capable of regenerating in the whole 1 year, in 12 months. So what happens during the remaining 4 months? Whatever we consume during the remaining 4 months is what is called an ecological debt, and that is piling up. And that has the potential to cause an ecological recession, which is far more catastrophic than any kind of an economic recession that we have ever seen. So sometimes, in that sense, progress is really about walking backwards. Backwards, finding our ways, finding access to our ancient wisdom that kept the swarms alive, that let us be in the swarms. So right now we are at the crossroads. We are in a very interesting point in the history of mankind. We have a choice to make. On one hand, we have unsustainable growth driven by the current economic paradigms, and on the other hand, we have sustainable abundance, which is a steady state. There is no growth in it. It doesn't need growth. It just needs interdependence between every individual. So belief is optional, but the need to choose is not. Now, at Proto Village, we dream of an abundant world, and we think we are working on a prototype of such an abundant world. And here, the paradigms are not so much about scaling up or scaling down. It is more in terms of scaling inwards, enrichment rather than development. Development to me sounds more like a vector quantity. It has got a definition, it has got a predefined magnitude, and it also has a predefined direction. So you ask anybody and they can very quickly point out this is underdeveloped and that is development, this is a direction. There is a direction, it's a vector quantity. Whereas enrichment to me is scalar. I mean, it's right here, right now, with what you have, who you are. So scaling inwards rather than scaling up. And then scaling out rather than scaling up yourself, you let others scale out. And staying steady. So in summary, it's all about you scale in, you stay open, then you scale out, and you stay steady. But I'll quickly define, take you through a little bit of theory that we worked out as part of the research. So abundance has 5 simple components. The green rim that you see around the image is a steady state. It's a resilience. It indicates resilience of a community. And just inside that you see about 9 ellipses. Each defines a basic need. And collectively, they define all the basic needs that need to be fulfilled for anybody to live in dignity, not just humans. I mean, of course, certain things are not appropriate for every living organism, like clothing, but for humans it is. Now, abundance is when people have absolute control over most of the resources that are necessary and sufficient to fulfill all these basic needs. The third component is the red dots. These are the member groups within a community. And each member group, as you can see, is taking the responsibility of one particular dimension, one of the 9 dimensions. And they take the responsibility of fulfilling that particular basic need for the entire community. And then you see a number of straight lines which are crisscrossing each other. That represents the patterns of interdependence that are drawn. And right at the very core, and the final component of abundance is the yin yang. The mutuality and coexistence. So the commitment towards mutuality and coexistence. So given that this is the definition of abundance, it's a state in which a community employs ecologically sustainable means to ensure and enjoy resilient access to resources that are necessary and sufficient to fulfill all the basic needs of all the inhabitants in a community, including humans. and not just the Philippines. So the story so far, I mean, I tend to talk a lot. It's a genetic disorder, but I'm trying to keep it very, very short right now. I used to work in the corporate world for about 7 years post my MBA, and then I quit my job because I suddenly started hating the idea of spending my life making a rich company richer. It didn't really make much sense. And then I didn't know what else to do, so I traveled around the country with absolutely no agenda. Just to challenge myself, I gave myself a couple of constraints to make it a little tougher. So the first constraint was I'll not spend a single penny on my stay throughout the journey, and I'll not spend a single penny on my food throughout the journey. Well, I compromised here and there, mostly in the cities, but in the villages, I stood. Still out of rhythm. But anyway, so and then during that journey across India was when I met hundreds and hundreds of people across various walks of life. And it was during that period of 2.5 years that the concept of, or the idea of proto-village started crystallizing and taking shape. And then I came down to my district, which is Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh. It happens to be the second driest district in the country after Jaisalmer. And but last year we had good rains. And I spent 1 year in the village to start with. That was my goal, and that was a year of arrogance. The moment I entered the village, right on the second day, I went back home and then created my website, and I put a ticker on it, a countdown ticker, and that said 1095 days is all I need to transform that very village. 1095 days, and every day was counting. And I call it arrogant and very, very stupid on hindsight. I heard Michelle talk about it yesterday as well. Setting up timelines is extremely ridiculous in such exercise. But there are some people who learn it only the hard way. And one of the questions that kept haunting me throughout the journey, as I started talking to people about proto-village, was one question that a lady asked me in Kutch. She is into development, and she's been kind of a mentor. And she said, are you proto? Well, all right, you're talking about creating a prototype of a village, etc., but are you proto? And it took me 1 year to understand the depth of that question. And that's when I started really experimenting with scaling inwards towards me and appreciating myself as a subject of change than anything outside. So an experiment with scaling in, and that's when I was, I was given a house in the village, but that collapsed in the rains. It rained also in 2010. And once that house collapsed, I was looking for a house, and this particular farmer's family, they were migrating out of the village towards Bangalore. It's closer to Bangalore. And their annual income at that time was about 7,000 rupees annual income. And I had the data because I had created the P&L accounts for each and every family during the first 1 year in the village. And I decided to go and plead with that family and then work with them, live with them, and maybe try and turn around that one family. So scale down from the village level to the family level and just get a hang of how it is to work in the village. Really, I wanted to put myself through shit, put myself through hardcore labor. And within, I remember telling the farmer also, again, timelines, I remember telling him that I'll take about 15 or 20 days to make his uncultivable land cultivable, and then after that we'll do so many things. It took us 7 months with a crowbar and a spade and 4 people. The farmer, his wife, an additional laborer, and myself. I was a farm help. And it took us 7 months to clear that land and make it cultivable. And now, this guy generates all the electricity that he needs. We've set up a handmade wind turbine that generates all the electricity that he needs. He grows most of the food that he eats. He grows fodder for his cows. He makes money. And he makes about 7,000 rupees per month right now. And it's growing. And I really, it's still out of rhythm. I really want to take your attention not to the money aspect, but the kind of independence that this guy enjoys right now. He doesn't have to go to market for most of the things that he needs. And that's where I feel that we are closing in on making this particular family abundant. Now, while working with this family for the last 2 years and making them, and I was living with them, so we were making ourselves abundant. We started defining proto village, and the idea now is scaling it even further. Don't stop at one family, but get it into you, so you become the proto. So that's when we started the idea of, thinking about the idea of an intentional community, a community of seekers who are committed to the idea of sustainable living. And the moment we had the idea, there were a bunch of friends who showed their agreement in joining hands, and they funded. They contributed a lot of money, and we immediately got the land. It's about 12.5 acres. So the vision is to make that a center of learning, practice, and demonstration, and dissemination of the knowledge, and how any community in this particular region, in the Anantapur bioregion, can organize itself for abundance. So we're not going to sit there and preach. We're going to grow our food. We're going to build our shelters there with the material that is available right there. We're going to generate our electricity. We're going to make our clothing as well. So we've got ways to do that. And we are going to do all of these, and also organize ourselves for abundance, in the sense that, as I showed in the image earlier, while defining abundance, we're going to organize ourselves, all the members of Proto Village, into smaller groups which are interdependent. Each group will become responsible for one particular dimension, and they have a pattern of interdependence. And interdependence creates an abundance of time, because you don't have to worry about making all your ends meet, because you know others will work for you. So, and as a matter of economic sustainability for ourselves, we're not definitely talking about money alone. We are talking about setting up innovative and eco-friendly micro enterprises, which along every single dimension of the 10 dimensions. And we will only set up the prototype micro enterprises and then scale them out through the villagers. So the villagers will set them up and then scale them out. And just to make sure that there is occupational diversity within each village, we'll only get a few groups, depending on the number of groups in the village, to set up one particular enterprise. And this occupational diversity automatically creates interdependence within that rural community. And it also is an incentive for the village, the village enterprise. If it has to scale up, it has to reach across to many other villages and establish its own value chains. So that is kind of an incentive to spread abundance. So these are a few principles that we want to live by. The most important that I'm going to talk about is place is greater than people, which is greater than penny. By place I mean the water, the land, and the air. So this is what sustains life. And if we don't take care of these, no amount of empowerment or education can help. And invitation to you all to be part. Right now, we have the land ready, and we've begun our work from the scratch. We'll be working on all the 10 dimensions there. And there will be a few things that will run in series, and there will be a few things that can run simultaneously. What we're doing is we're inviting a number of volunteers to come and live with us. And at the same time, if someone wants to start it in a different phase, it's even better. And we can collectively create an open source document, a wiki kind of a document, where we'll constantly document every single mistake that we do and everything that we get right as well. So come join hands and let's go create Proto Village. Thank you.
I'll not try to sum up the sessions and all so that we have enough time for the Q&A. I think in the next 15-20 minutes I'll just share the story of Goon Fest, My Turn Has Come, where we primarily talk about the non-issues and also about all kind of alternative resources for the development. Couple of stories which I have shared often, especially from this stage itself, because this is like my annual makar. Last year only I missed it somehow. but just for the people who have never attended such session, I mean, what we have been talking about is the non-issues. What we are saying is that maybe in this country now, more than the issues, non-issues are troubling people. Couple of non-issues which we identified, and in this journey of a few slides, you will find more of those. One was certainly the issue of clothing, which is a non-issue of clothing. Then the sanitary pad issue, and various issues. So, what we argued last, literally about 15 years back, we just said that you talk about three basic needs of humankind. You say roti, kapda, makan, and then you just ignore or forget kapda, which is cloth. Cloth, not only in India, across the globe, is either a disaster relief material or an absolute charitable subject or object. You have people who work on, shelter and food. You will never find a constant or a continuous effort on the clothing, which is not a charitable effort. So we just argued that if earthquake is a disaster, flood is a disaster, how come winters are not a disaster? Why don't we have figures of people who died or suffered due to lack of clothing in winters? So a story which we have been sharing and which many of you must have heard, and it's actually come from Delhi. There is this person called Habib, and this is my journalism days, so almost 20 years back. In old Delhi, you suddenly find a rickshaw on which in Hindi it is written "Lavaris last hone wala," a person who picks up unclaimed dead bodies for the local police. The person is still alive, has lost his memories almost, but that's his full-time job. And Delhi is the hub of migrated population from all across the country, and various people die because of various reasons. Habib goes, picks up the dead body, brings it to the crematorium. He's paid 20 rupees to meter a white cloth per dead body. That's it. I spent about a week with him when I found about him, and two statements came up. The first statement which came from Habib is कि साहब जाड़ों में मेरा धंधा बढ़ जाता है, कभी-कभी इतना काम होता है कि मुझसे संभलता नहीं. And to my utter surprise, every 24 hours, Habib used to pick up 10 to 12 dead bodies. In summers, the average used to be 4 to 5. His little daughter, Kanish Bano, gave the most shocking statement by saying कि जब मुझे ठंड लगती है तो मैं लाश के साथ चिपक कर सो जाती थी. लाश तंग नहीं करती, लाश करवट नहीं बदलती. 100% non-issue, 100% basic need, absolutely mundane. Talk about development issues across the globe. You have 150 issues from domestic violence to global warming. Have you ever found clothing written as a subject? Although it is one of the basic needs for all of us. Another dimension. Years later, when we started working on it, we raised another issue in 2004, 2005, this was 8 years back. We said that every single woman across the globe needs a piece of cloth, which is now called a sanitary pad. But in a country where half of your population does not have enough to wear, from where and how you bring a piece of cloth? Go on Google in 2004, 2005, the information got. Type sanitary pad, sanitary napkin, you find the best possible tampons and cups from all across the globe. Not even a single major research in India, no problem statement, no solution. Why it bothers? Why this non-issue bothers? Because this is a country where you have the largest number of self-help groups, huge amount of microfinance, and a lot of efforts on the health. And everywhere the target is women, and nowhere we talk about the napkin. We started traveling across the country to understand, and we found that they use the dirtiest piece of cloth because for them it's a synonym of dirt. They wash it, they cannot dry it in sunlight because of obvious reasons. Even washing is a big problem because in our normal development approach, we put up public hand pumps or public whatever well. So what happens is that the entire water need is fulfilled at a public place. So if you do not have privacy to take bath, how can you wash this piece of cloth? With dust, with moisture, they wear it again. We found if you have 2 to 3 women in the family, their cycles are different, they are sharing the same piece of cloth. We further found that it is also shared with the village women. So it is a small dirty piece of cloth is a property of a village, not of a family itself. We found that millions of women, not only in India, across the globe are using sand, ash, jute gunny bag, dari ka tukda, bori ka tukda, ghas, mitti, pual, newspaper, yahan tak ki polythene. So anything and everything which can absorb, which can stop is used as a sanitary pad. We found a lady who used a piece of blouse, she died of tetanus in Firozabad. A centipede entered, the lady died in Tamil Nadu. And now we find that the largest number of uterus removal are actually happening because of lack of this piece of cloth. Because the moment an infection happens, the corrupt health system, the quacks tell you that now you have a cervical cancer or the cancer will fit in. And the uterus is removed exactly at the childbearing age. And the solution is your old handkerchief. 100% non-issue. This is what we are talking about. This is what maybe the agenda of this conference is. That is there not a desperate need to think that the issues are totally different, the magnitude is totally different. When you say 50% of your population do not get 2 meals a day, it is just not the 50% of population of a country, it is basically the population of so many countries put together, just because of the volume. We started working, and because it was a non-issue, no funding agency, no corporate was obviously there to support, because for them cloth always has been just a form of charity. We didn't want to promote charity. We wanted to move it out of charity. Hundreds of people who think we are in the business of distribution and collection of cloth are absolutely wrong, because we are just using it as a resource, because we understand that the biggest asset of village people in India is something called self-respect, something called dignity. You do not find beggars in the villages. Begging is a city phenomenon. This is Habib and his rickshaw. This is how we operate. I'll just keep it short, because the processing is a major part of our work, because we understand that the biggest problem with so-called donation is that you give what you have, you never give what people need. And in any case, when you say I want to donate cloth, that itself is a wrong word, because you never donate, you actually discard. So that positioning has to change, that vocabulary has to change. In a very systematic manner, it goes to the village. This is what I wanted to show you. That how many of the parallel currencies we are trying to use in the development world. This is about 2,000 people who come together in Alamnagar of Bihar, work on about 1.85 kilometers of road and repair it. Many of us work where we use the community to take up community initiatives. What I am trying to show here is that any picture which you see in the next 7-8 slides, not even a single penny is paid to the people. Rather, people were rewarded with cloth, utensil, footwear, and all kind of second-hand material which we use as currency. The wells, we were just talking about water, and this is how in many areas wells are coming up. The biggest currency I think which we are using is also the local wisdom, which is often ignored. And I remember there was an argument in one of the award entry a few years back where they were talking about a consultant when we spoke about a bridge which we made. And this is the same question I actually asked them, that listen, you talk about consultant, you talk about all this urban phenomena and urban knowledge and wisdom and all that kind of thing. The fact remains that there was a time when the country was full of wealth, there were no machines and there was no wisdom, and there were no consultants. And now you have consultants, you have machine and the wells are not there. So there is something fundamentally wrong somewhere, because we have ignored the local wisdom. In this world, we just value that. This is how the wells have come up. I mean, this is a very peculiar story where after we got the water, we started putting pressure on the government, and this well was actually taken under Narega. People were paid wages, and it became a case study in that area for water conservation and different kind of initiatives. This bridge in Bihar again, 240 feet by 6 feet. On the spot, what we spent was 2,250 rupees. Just on the nails and some wire. Every single villager contributed a bit and a few days of labor Today, in the same area, you have a proper concrete bridge because it puts a lot of pressure on the local administration, local governance. Now you have a proper concrete bridge in the area, but this bridge was maintained very well for many years because when you make it, you maintain it. So then even the maintenance cost is very low. Many bridges like this all across the country. Again, to tell you that not even a single penny is paid. Few parallel currencies which we have been able to use or the resources is A, the wisdom of people, B, whatever local material is available, we don't bring things from outside. C, the most important, the local knowledge, traditional knowledge and the wisdom of people. We have schemes for digging new ponds. There is hardly any scheme to clean up the pond, especially in the eastern part of the country. That's where we take up these pond cleaning exercises as a part of cloth work. Lot of roads, wherever we see a gap. The local resources lying useless on the roads, the government resources. And this is how the complicated process is without any machine. And this is the final road which has come up. It's about 2 kilometer road. 100% local resources, the way you see it. The schools. I think the most important part of this particular approach is also it's not a top-down approach where people like us are not deciding that what people need and what activities people need. This is something where the village actually decides that maybe we do not need a road. For us, most important is cleaning the pond because water is more important right now. That's where the community decides. We connect urban and rural schools with the help of material, because when we talk about education, we talk about teacher-student ratio, whole lot of things. But in this, the material goes as a reward. In Anganwadi, the statement came up that pehle bachcha aata nahi tha, bachcha jata nahi. Just because now the Anganwadi is a very colorful space with the wastage of urban India. This is what I wanted to talk about, that how the 100% discarded old cloth, the cotton, semi-cotton, has actually become such a viable solution. And please understand that this cannot solve the problem of this country. We can only do this much. Like as I said in the starting, that million is a very small word here. It is very important for us to understand that if women are using sand, ash, whatever, instead of just discarding that and replacing that with a plastic sheet wrapped sanitary pad, can we just understand that what is good about it and can we change the practices there? Maybe the ash is absolutely nice to absorb or for anything. The biggest problem might be the outer cover in which they put the ash. So can we really work on that to find a solution for sanitary pads in volumes? This is how we open up the subject. Wealthy urban citizens are the resource for this, stitching center and many of these, not only the Dahej machines, but also because the urban citizens are growing fat and the practice of whatever happens as a raw material, the rural stitching centers only try to fit those clothes. So it has actually become a resource for that the clothes, the urban clothes. Wedding sets, whatever we collect from places. So I'm just trying to show you the different kind of things which we collect, which is the wastage of urban India, and which is like in huge quantity can actually become a big resource for many other communities. This is how the processing center works. All of you are invited to Delhi to see this, how every single old thing is used. One story of this generator, again an urban wastage, how it actually electrified an entire village in Assam. We spent about 10,000 rupees in refurbishing that and sending that. And there was no money involved because we only calculated the cost of kerosene, which they were spending or burning. And that kerosene money became a monthly fees for these people. Within a year with this old generator, we were actually generating surplus in the district of Darang in Assam. Some other things, the old doors and windows for a hospital or a school. This is how the bands have come up. Very interesting thing, which is I don't think the picture is there. The old glasses and frames now we are sending to many areas where the cataract surgery happens. within 40 rupees now, people have an access to a Ray-Ban glass. Because the glass in India is not expensive, the frame is. So that's what we are doing. And just maximum 40 rupees, whether you talk about Melghat or Champaran, everywhere this lens is available after the cataract surgery, just for 40 rupees. You have seen the bag. We develop almost 50 such products out of waste material, and it creates a lot of employment. So I'll not go deep into this. I think a lot is available on the website. This I didn't want to put, but then I again put it in the presentation because just wanted to say something. Despite the fact that there are, we have won a number of awards, the fact remains that even today, clothing is not a development subject. And it's been 15 years of this particular work. And we have proved at many places that how it plays an important role. Despite the fact that a whole lot of people have recognized, I think the biggest hurdle in our work is the biggest organization or the big organizations in this country who have a typical mindset. I think the time has come when we start rethinking about these things. That if so many concepts are popular, so many concepts are making difference somewhere, why can't these concepts enter or merge with the bigger organization which have much bigger reach in the country? My last pictures, just to say something that this is a very common child in our society. All of us in the development sector call this kid a community. We go and put 2 drops of anti-polio drugs in his mouth. We feed him, maybe as a part of midday meal. We never question that why this kid is not wearing a cloth. Can this country look like this? The body language changes. He is no more a bechara, garib ka bachcha, bhuka danga. The most common word all of us use, or maybe are working towards so that these words are not used. But a piece of cloth changes. No wisdom, as we often see. We will not even go to this person and sit for 5 minutes to understand the village. Suddenly the person becomes a kaka. The wisdom comes with a dhoti and a kurta. Now he is the right person to talk about the village. Someone in the village, dadi badi, t-shirt fati, you have particular words, what we use. And suddenly a powerful youth. So basically, we are certainly not in the process of collection or distribution of material. We see this as the genesis of a parallel economy which is not cash based, which is trash based. And trash is such a huge resource in this country, which is lying everywhere. And more trash is there in urban India, which can be utilized for the progress of the rural parts. That's what I just wanted to say. Thank you very much. We have about 10 minutes for sure. For the Q&As and any comment, be very brief so that more questions and all. Do we have a mic?
I know. Always first come.
So, I won't repeat my name today because a lot of people complimented in the evening telling me I'll be asking good questions. But my question to you quickly is that we've been talking about that enforcement of the number game on the developmental sector. My belief is that is top enforced, right? But as a kind of organization we present here, like, how do we contribute to changing that dialogue and the dynamics and everything? Like, your views on that, everybody.
Anybody want to comment? The number game? most favorite, most played game? You know, yeah. You have the mic.
I'll just try to answer the question. When I was trying to understand the whole space, I was primarily driven by statistics and numbers. But now when I'm working on the field, I don't care. So my perspective is that we only bother about the numbers till the time we start working on the ground. I mean, really. And then it doesn't really matter what scale, what scale can we even talk about, can we afford to talk about. If you've seen the picture of the planet Earth from 400 million miles as the Voyager sent, it looks like, and in Carl Sagan's words, it's a mote of dust suspended in a beam of sunlight. So we are insignificant people. What scale can we even talk about? So scale is just not important. And I think the more we work on the ground, the more field experience that we collect, the less we care about numbers.
So just to add, in my opinion, scale matters a lot. I mean, instead of say the way I look at our work is that I am not looking for any ideal situation, because there is nothing which is called ideal ultimately. I don't want to spend my life in just a particular area and all that, So scale matters in this country, because then only things will improve, and it is very much needed. Fundamentally, I think we just need to rethink about it, that our role is to just talk about numbers, or we want to bring changes in the thought process or the way things are happening, or the way schemes are implemented. So let the government be worried about it, that how many people they are targeting for a particular scheme. In many cases, our role is just to see the effective hardcore implementation of the entire work. Why number is not that important? Just to measure the success in this country, because this is not one of those countries like any other country where you have a comparatively less corruption in terms of field and all. Our lifetime ultimately goes in just maybe many of us are actually not doing the development work at the end of the day. We are just putting in our effort to make sure that people survive. I mean, development only can happen from 0 to 10. Okay? Now, a large part of our population lives below 0. When I talk about 0, I only talk about maybe 2 meals a day, or a couple of pieces of cloth, or a basic primary education and all. Most of us are working, for the population which is below 0. So that way, somewhere, the moment people call us a development organization, I really wonder that we are in the game of development, or we are just making sure that people survive somehow.
So I'm slightly more confused than before I started, because somewhere this guy told me here, forget about the scales, numbers, and it's more of an internal journey which you kind of expand into the whole the village, and then it becomes an internal journey for the village and how they improve themselves. Whereas you're talking the earlier pinch which I understood from you was on probably the numbers are getting reflected more than the qualitative changes that are being brought up. That was, as I understood, was the initial pain from which you were speaking those things. Now it's a slightly different track, because now you're talking about scale and all that. So I'm slightly more confused in a way, I would say.
Come up with your question. The confusion is fine.
Okay.
Because if there are different people, they have different approaches, right, and they have different ways to look into things.
Sure.
From my perspective and the type of work we are doing, I think the way we have to project the changes that are taking place have to be in numbers. Unfortunately, we have to be in numbers. The reason is because there are so many interventions taking place by government and others, and they want to see the changes. So the confusion we often regularly have is, put it in a figure the way it is understood. But what we realize is that there is so much more, particularly in ecosystem services, that cannot be captured in numbers as yet. And the what I would call the side effects that take place are not yet captured. And we need to make an impact because finally, unfortunately, it is economics that talks. And today, if you talk to anybody over here, everyone will say it's economics that matters. I'm not saying that this is the only way, but I think we have to address that to make a difference in the way and then learn to quantify the other services that are not yet reflected.
So just to add, it's not about either or in any case. It's not about either or, it is about and. What we are talking here is that maybe we are giving more stress to the numbers than the qualitative part of it. So people need to understand, not only people who are working in the field, but also who are at the receiving end of this information, also need to value the qualitative aspect of the changes. It's not about the numbers. That's the whole thing.
Right. So I think probably the hit we are getting from is like this top-down thing, like the larger bodies, they're kind of demanding a figure in the sum of like per dollar spent, what kind of changes we are making. I think we have pain with that kind of language being used itself, like because at the end of it, we're talking about humans.
Absolutely.
They're not just numbers or like figures in some computer stored somewhere. Like.
Absolutely. So that thought process needs to change. So Ankit, you want to?
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments. As in the discussion which we are just having, I just have a feel that many of the social entrepreneurs or the whole development, the paradigm is that we are trying to create alternate systems. As in many of us are trying to create alternate systems. But the biggest system which is there, we always script that the Narega is not working, midday meal is not working, RT is not working, everything is not working. So why don't all of such entrepreneurs and all of such people who have an aptitude for doing the development try and make that system work? So if you could do that, then probably you'll get access to the resources, you'll get access to the impact, and that will give you numbers. That will also give you a qualitative impact on the numbers also. So just a thought for all of us out here that we should not just look at the government is not doing this. Try and understand why it is not happening and try and make a difference in that system, which will make a larger impact both in terms of numbers and quality. That's just a comment for me.
Anyone else? There's a hand there. Yes.
मॉर्निंग सर, मेरा नाम रॉबिन है और मैं डोनेशन का मैं काम करता हूँ एज ए यूनिफाइड डेवलपमेंट एसोसिएट एम्प्लॉय। मेरा एक बेसिक क्वेश्चन ये है कि जब पहली बार जब आपने लोगों से कपड़ा डोनेट करवाया तो एक माइंडसेट होता है कि लोग कपड़ा क्यों दे, क्लोथ क्यों दे, क्योंकि एक चला फेरी वाले पहले आते थे जो कपड़ा देने के बाद कुछ लोग उससे बर्तन वगैरह लेते थे, तो लोगों का एक माइंडसेट होता है कि उसको कैसे मैं कपड़ा क्यों दूं, उसके बदले मुझे कुछ मिले। तो उस माइंडसेट को आपने कैसे चेंज किया और आपको इनिशियली ऐसा क्या चैलेंजेस आए जब आपने कपड़ा डोनेशन लिया लोगों से?
देखिए, कपड़ा का जहां तक सवाल है वो एक तो वो वाला माइंडसेट ज्यादा बचा नहीं है, बिकॉज यदि हम हार्डकोर सच बोले तो जो मैंने कहा कि वो डोनेशन नहीं, वो डिस्कार्ड है, वो लोगों के ऊपर बर्डन है। एक लेवल के बाद उसको छुटकारा पाना होता है इंसान को उस कपड़े से, बिकॉज कपड़े की कहानी बहुत सिंपल है कि पहले मन से लिया फिर तन से लिया। अच्छा भला स्वेटर है, मेरा मन इससे भर गया, उसके बाद मैं इसको अपनी अलमारी में नहीं देखना चाहता, ये मेरे आंख का कांटा बन जाता है जब मैं अलमारी। और हर डिजास्टर इसका सबसे बड़ा प्रूफ है। मतलब वरना अचानक लोग इतने जनरस कैसे हो जाते हैं कि एक रात को पूरे के पूरे ट्रक भर के कपड़े दे देते हैं, जबकि डिजास्टर में कपड़े की जरूरत नहीं है। आप हमेशा इस बात पे ध्यान रखिए कि डिजास्टर क्या है, कपड़ा आप एक बार में एक पहन सकते हैं, दूसरा आपको स्टोर करना होगा, ठीक है। डिजास्टर सबसे पहले आपसे क्या छीनता है, आपकी स्टोरेज कैपेसिटी छीनता है। तो इवन द सेकंड पेयर ऑफ क्लॉथ इज अ बर्डन ऑन ए पर्सन, ऑन अ सो कॉल्ड विक्टिम ऑफ अ डिजास्टर, बट 99% ऑफ द वर्ल्ड अल्टीमेटली गिव्स ओल्ड क्लॉथ। और कैसे काम आएगा? आप अर्बन इंडिया से लेडीज के कपड़े इकट्ठे करते हैं, आपको क्या मिलता है? जींस, टी शर्ट, लेडीज सूट। 99% रूरल इंडिया को चाहिए साड़ी, ब्लाउज, पेटीकोट। अर्बन इंडिया का मेल मेरे जैसा 32 से 40, रूरल इंडिया का मेल 26 से 30। तो सड़क पे नहीं मिलेगा तो कहां मिलेगा? हर फालतू चीज का अल्टीमेटली जो जगह है वो सड़क है हिंदुस्तान में, तो सड़क पे मिलता है वो। तो इतना भाव देने का जरूरत नहीं है। मतलब मैं साफ बोलता हूँ, हम लोगों की वेस्टेज पे काम करते हैं और आने वाले टाइम में हम लोगों से चार्ज भी करेंगे कि जब तुम पुरानी चाय पत्ती और गोभी के पत्ते देखने के लिए, आलू के छिलके के लिए 100 रुपया देते हो कचरे वाले को, तो हम तो उससे बड़ा कचरा साफ करते हैं। मुझे लगता है कि ऑलरेडी क्योंकि हम लोग लेट स्टार्ट किया है तो एग्जैक्टली 11:05 हो गए, मैंने पूरा 1.5 घंटे डॉट लिया प्रॉमिस के हिसाब से, तो लेट्स जस्ट क्लोज। आप लास्ट क्वेश्चन आप पूछिए प्लीज।
So my name is Alok. Since yesterday I've been hearing a lot about strengthening grassroots has to take a participatory approach. But from my past 7 months experience at the field, whatever formal participatory institutions exist, they are functional merely on paper. So in that case, what would be the more systematic and functional way to approach community-led development?
नहीं, इन सेंस की जो पार्टिसिपेटरी अप्रोच वाले ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं वो मोस्टली पेपर पे काम कर रहा है, फील्ड में नहीं कर रहा है। Am I right?
As far as my knowledge goes, many of the organizations, especially in agriculture, without involving the communities, addressing the problems, it is impossible to make a change. So paper में बहुत लोग बोल सकते हैं, but actually if you go and see the models, then only you can be able to know the success. If you know hear about some story, and if you think that this is happening on paper, and then it's not like that. You should go and observe what's happening there, and you should spend time with the communities.
देखिए इसके दो पक्ष हैं। एक तो ये है कि हम हिंदुस्तानी मतलब या हिंदुस्तान इनहेरेंटली करप्ट लोगों का देश है, मतलब हम है ही करप्ट है, इसमें क्या है तो सब जानते हैं। हम भले मतलब एक वो उड़ के मुखौटा उड़ के कहें कि हम नहीं हैं, तो वो आपको हर जगह मिलेगा वो जो पेपर में है, बट द फैक्ट आल्सो रिमेन्स। कल से जो आप देख रहे हैं, आपने इतने सारे अप्रोचेस, इतने सारे काम देखे हैं जिसमें बहुत बड़े स्केल पे लोगों ने काम किया है। So I think it is also in your eyes that how you see it and what you see. At the same place you have some organizations which are there on papers. At the same place you have absolutely amazing, wonderful organizations which are reaching out to millions of people in the same country. So I think go with a positive attitude and I'm pretty sure you will get something good. जो अभी अंकित ने भी बोला कि हम थोड़ा सा इस चीज को देखें कि भाई वो कैसे काम करे उसमें करें। So in the end I'll thank you very much for this first session और अच्छा लगा कि धीरे-धीरे सभी लोग आ गए।
And I would like to add something. Facts are fabrication, people are artifacts. This process forms the objectives of what they speak.
I'd like to call upon Mr. Anshu Gupta to please present a token of memento to the speakers. I'd like to call upon Sneha Agarwal to give Mr. Anshu Gupta. Okay, now we break for tea. So we'll be back in 20 minutes.
Since we started late, let's try to make up for the time. We are already half an hour late. Half an hour late. So can we break it? I mean, can we have the tea within the next 20 minutes? And then we are back so that we are able to manage. Thank you.
That happens. So, do we have a kind of that we are ready when we mature enough to really more and more leaders without really thinking